Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry for the little bit, just a few moments late to get started. We've done better and worse. No technical issues today, just sorting out a few agenda items. Before we begin, I'd like to recognize with gratitude that this meeting is taking place on the unceded territory of the Kwatsan, Malahat, Subasit, Alalt, Penelakut, Staminas, Layaxan, Palkachin, Dididat, and Pachidat nations, whose people have walked gently here for thousands of years. I do want to recognize it's so nice to be joined by two members of Tsinghua. Thank you for coming today. And I believe that you'll be joining one of our later items in the meeting, so thank you so much for coming. I apologize for the heat in here today. Apparently, it's cool in the hallway, hot in the boardroom. We still haven't figured out our HVAC situation despite a lot of investment in it over the last couple of years. With that, we'll get the meeting underway. I do also want to recognize, before we adopt the agenda, the somber anniversary today of September 11th. I know, as our Committee of the Whole Chair said this morning, not many of us will forget where we were when we saw the terrible tragedy unfold that day. And I know it'll sit with many of us for a long time. And living in an American city that day, I had a particularly impactful experience, having just returned actually from the area in New York just the week prior when that all unfolded. So we did have a moment of silence this morning, so we'll just continue with our business this afternoon, but just want to remark the somber anniversary of that tragedy. With that, we will get underway. Ms. Boyd.
Thank you, Chair. We have the approval of the agenda, and we have a few additional items. So that the agenda be amended to reclassify the closed session items in reflection to the Community Charter, Section 90. That'd be CSSR1 under Section 91K with an additional new item. CSSR2, Section 91B, CSSR3, Section 91D, and to add the additional minutes for the closed session meetings of August 11th, 2023, September 11th, 2023, and July 24th, 2024 as housekeeping items. And those additional items have been circulated to the board in hard copy in front of you today.
Thank you. If there are no objections, I'll ask for a motion to accept the agenda as amended, moved by Director Morrison, seconded by Director Segal. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Ms. Boyd.
Thank you, Chair. We move to adoption of the minutes. We have the special board meeting of August 11th meeting minutes be adopted.
If there are no errors or omissions, I see it's been moved by Director Martman. Safe to say it's probably accurate. Seconded by Director Morrison. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Motion carries.
M2, that the minutes of the regular board meeting of September 6, 2023 be adopted.
Moved by Director Martman, seconded by Director Segal. Oh, was that a second? I thought you had a comment. No? Okay. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Ms. Boyd.
M3, that the minutes of the regular board meeting of July 24th, 2024 be adopted.
Moved by Director Abbott, seconded by Director McGonigal. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. It's always my goal to get a mover and seconder from every seat at the table in a meeting, so I'll do my best. Ms. Boyd.
Thank you, Chair. We have no business arising from the minutes. We move to number 4, public input period.
Thank you. Welcome now to take the podium for public input period. It's an offer of an opportunity for the public to provide input on an agenda item before our board today. We only ask, I'm not going to read all this out, I'm sorry, that the input from the community is valued and appreciated. We only ask that you present it in a friendly and respectful manner. We're here to hear your input and happy to hear from you. So if we do have anyone for public input, you're free to take the podium now and take that time. With such a full gallery, it's interest in the items, not necessarily input, so we'll move on to the next item. Ms. Boyd.
Thank you, Chair. D1, Jacques Hildebrand, the Cowichan Public Art Gallery Society, Cowichan Public Art Gallery information update and requests for future funding, especially regarding the upcoming report on arts.
Welcome, Mr. Hildebrand.
Hi, sorry, David.
That's okay. And just make sure the microphone's on there, and if you can you're in a good spot just in front of the camera there so those online can see you as well. Thank you. Just press the blue button and there you
Okay,
go.
There we go. Well, good afternoon. Thank you very much for allowing me to present to you folks. Thank you, Mr. Chair and directors. Because of the new study into the arts and culture is going ahead, and we actually went to all of the roundtables and actually had private discussions with the group that was actually working on that, Happy Cities. Our organization wanted to bring attention to our extraordinary project in the Valley. And we believe that our organization is deserving of ongoing funding due to the value, cultural and economic, we bring to our Cowichan non-Indigenous and Indigenous citizens. So we will be requesting at some point that a portion of our budget become a line item for the CVRD in light of the new cultural plan. So you may ask, well, what is it that we do that's of value? We're different from the 4 other arts councils that are in the Valley because their mandate is to promote and assist local artists to present their work and to support them in that endeavor. This is for local artists. Our project is really quite different. So what we do is we have an exhibition place where we do the exhibits, but all of the exhibitions go through a curatorial process. We get applications, we go through them, we value them, we value them in terms of quality, and then we make our decisions about what's going to be exhibited for the following year or years. So we're actually about a year and a half into our bookings that we have already for the art gallery. So our stated mission, is to be a public art institution committed to developing connections between art and our communities. Its exhibits should stimulate intellectual inquiry, capture visitors' imagination, and encourage debate and discussion. We're also committed to fostering dialogue between artists, both local and international. Our vision is to do this by mounting a broad and dynamic range of exhibitions, primarily modern, occasionally historical, based on what universal issues that affect our lives, recognizing and respecting the different perspectives of our viewers. We aim for programs that will reflect the vast variety of contemporary art practice and mediums by a range of artists, both established and emerging. We will balance thematic group shows with solo exhibitions. We'll also periodically exhibit works from permanent collection. The exhibition program will build and maintain the gallery's reputation as a vital cultural institution within the overall networks of Canadian public art galleries. Our mandate is to bring national and international exhibitions to the Valley. We have a policy that we will be exhibiting 85% of our exhibition time to national and international arts. Now you may say, well, why are you not doing that for local artists? Well, we have 4 arts councils, that's their mandate, and we respect that, and therefore we've determined that we will do only 15% of our exhibitions will be local folks, and they will have to go through the same processes that anybody else does. We're a charitable not-for-profit society. The charitable status is something that was hard worked and finally achieved. We have over 250 people who bought annual memberships, and our organization is comprised of volunteers. All of these folks here in our organization. And could I get you to put your hands up if you're involved with us? So these are some of our supporters who've come to let you folks know that they value this project. So the project's run by approximately 52 volunteers. I know there's 6 more coming on next week. We have 5 committees. One is fundraising, programming, exhibition or hanging takedown committee, docent committee, building committee, and a board consisting of 10 directors, all of whom are, with the exception of me, are astonishingly professional people. Should I mention that Taylor Swift endorsed us yesterday? Anyways, sorry. So, the difference between the arts councils. Arts councils promote and support local artists, and they rent their gallery space for free to the local arts. We don't do that. We have juried exhibitions, and we pay the artists that we accept in CARFAC fees. That's a national fee system for professional artists that get paid when they exhibit. All of this, of course, leads to an awful lot of fundraising. We also do community education through workshops, art tours, as well as docent guided tours. We are now in the process of bringing in busloads of students from various schools. I think we've had 4 of them to date. That's really what we're looking for. As the children aspect is especially for me important. We started about 7 years ago. We rented gallery space from the Arts Council for a Cowichan Public Art Gallery until we acquired the Green Door building 3 years ago. Economics, and I often talk about that, and I know there are people who are not especially impressed with art. I know there are people who don't like art, but everybody likes to see money coming in, and that's what our project will be doing. So when we are a mature project and finished, we're looking at almost $1 million in staffing annually, and according to a fellow who did a study for us, Paul Warren, he's from the London School of Economics, we will be bringing in almost 10 million in ancillary community income because of the existence of our project. It will create 98 jobs inside and outside of the gallery in ancillary, culturally related and gallery jobs. Study was authored by Paul Warren, graduate of London School of Economics, who consults internationally, saw our project and said, I would volunteer to do this for you for free. Otherwise, it would have been a very expensive study. Presently, at gallery space, we have the lower level is the gallery. We are in the process of taking over a portion of the main floor, so we'll have 2 galleries. We have a counselor from the Cowichan Tribes who sits on our board and is our official liaison to Cowichan Tribes, and that's Kelvin Suesis Sr., elder locally and provincially, and he'll help bring us insight to Indigenous cultures and how we can exhibit and educate our public about First Nations art and culture. We have art in the galley, so for 3 years now, we've had tents in our alley, the alley between BC Tel and ourselves, and that's proven to be hugely successful, and we're anticipating doubling that next year. And I think everybody's found that a really enjoyable thing. That will next year also be juried. So, one of the things that concerned me is I did a study, and that study was about funding for the public art galleries in various communities. All the art galleries in BC, publicly funded art galleries, all of them in BC are financed to some degree or another by their local municipality or local governance group. So some of them get a tremendous amount of money, some of them are larger, some are smaller, but it averages out to 41% of all of the budgets in BC, 41% is paid for by the municipalities. And I'll just give you a couple of examples if I can read this small print. Kelowna Art Gallery, for example, municipal funding, sorry, I'm the wrong one, $688,689 annually. This is a study I did about a year and a half ago. The Nanaimo Art Gallery, for example, they have a $900 budget, and $100,000 of that comes from the municipality, but they also supply the building and the maintenance. Kamloops Art Gallery, their budget is $1.2 million, and they get $500,000 basically from their municipality. Campbell River Art Gallery, for example, their budget is their annual budget is $195,000, and $170,000 comes from the municipality. There's a whole list of them. I could go on and on, but basically what I'm saying is they understand that a project like a public art gallery brings so much value to our community that they believe that they do truly need to support it. Why do they need to support it? For the mental health of the community, for the ability for the community to take a look at exhibits that come from far outside. Artists in particular are interested in seeing those exhibitions that move around the country, come from Europe, come nationally, and those are the exhibits we want to bring in so that our community can look at what's going on around the world in contemporary art perhaps at some point, some of those kids that come in the school buses take a look and say, wow, this is amazing. I want to be an artist. I want to be involved in this. So basically, that's my pitch. I hope that you folks will consider our request. We are all volunteers. We've raised $1.3 million to date. And I'll tell you, that's through sweat and hard work. And I'm not sure we can carry on with that. That is my bit, and David has,
You're just, wait, I let you go over time, but you are over time. Did you have a bit to add, David?
I just wanted to say. Just wanted to say hello as an old timer here in the Valley. For some of you youngins, I'm been a taxpayer for 35 years. David Colson. I co-founded the Green Door Society back in '99, and 25 years ago we had this vision. I finally have the strength on board to actually bring this vision to reality. My wife and I were in the early 70s. That's really taken me back. Created British Columbia's first outdoor sculpture courtyard at the Surrey Bear Creek Art Center. And when I saw the site that was being bulldozed by the city on Ingram Street, I saw a perfect opportunity to bring that same concept here to Duncan. 25 years later, it looks like we're going to get there. Been happily involved with the CVRD as a volunteer for well over 20 years, I think, Allison, on the APC. I've been on the EAC, North Cowichan, for a number of years, and I've been a chairman of the design panel for the City of Duncan for a number of years, and director. So I'm dedicated to this project. I'm dedicated to this community. It's not just about art. It's about the amenities we need to bring to this community. If we're building a $1.5 billion hospital, we want the best people to be behind this hospital and attract the best people into this community. We're not trying to gentrify it. Don't get us wrong. It's not a art gallery show. It's really creating an amenity that we feel is really missing in this community. It'll help draw the biggest, the best, and the brightest to this community. So I just want to leave you with that small thing. We need to support these kind of things going forward. So you'll be seeing more of us.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
I will turn it over to the board. If I could just, Jock, if I could ask, you mentioned these funding, but you clearly mentioned municipalities, not regional districts, providing funding to these galleries, and to be frank, much larger communities. Do you have any examples of where regional districts are funding art galleries of that size and scope?
sorry. I can't exactly tell you that. I believe, and I don't have that written down.
Okay,
but I'll give you
worries.
some examples of some small communities that do that. For example, Smithers, they have a $35,000 budget, and they get, goodness me, they get $15,000, so it's almost half from the community.
Thank you. I'll turn it over to my colleagues
Well,
on
I think
the
one of the
board.
other points there, just to finish that off, is the fact that we've got a catchment here. We've got a body catchment here in the Cowichan Valley. That's the three the municipality and regional district combined of over 90,000. And the part of this study determined that there is no jurisdiction in BC of that size without an operating art gallery. We've reached that threshold.
Okay.
That's what I'm getting at. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, David.
Director Wilson first, and then I'll take other speakers.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Jock and everybody. Can I ask if you've seen this article?
No.
This was published in The Citizen in May of this year as an editorial which says the Cowichan Valley is a paradise for the arts lover. And I agree, and it says that we're incredibly spoiled living in Cowichan, beautiful scenery. But then one of the sentences which says, and beyond all of that, we are awash in the arts. And there's another paragraph which says, the world of the visual arts, I've bypassed a lot of the other stuff like concerts and things, the world of the visual arts is just as impressive. Artist studios abound, professional to amateur, along with galleries, art shows. It does actually mention you as well, has big plans for the Duncan home, Cowichan Valley. There are a lot here, right? And the final sentence is, so pick your poison this spring for the many performances and shows on offer, or try something new right here in Cowichan. The whole point of this article is that we are, I'll use the same phrase, awash in the arts here. And I must admit that something like this, given the presentation that we had earlier on homelessness, the unhoused, and some of the crises we are facing, and this particular report as well, Hunger in Canada, I don't find funding any more of this as a high priority. So can you tell me, for instance, and I will end up with a question, can you tell me how many volunteers hours you had last year?
Just with our docents alone, 2,226 hours.
Okay,
And the board is 4,000.
okay. That doesn't compare very well with the arts in the theatre at the Cowichan Valley Arts Centre there. They have far more, and they're volunteers as well. But I'll leave it at that.
If
What
I may
I'm saying
answer
is I
that-
don't find this as a high priority as far as I'm personally concerned, given the other things that we are trying to fund as well.
May I answer that question?
Yeah.
Well, I don't believe that there, as an artist for 53 years who's worked primarily overseas, I don't find being awash in the arts as any kind of a negative situation. I do know that a lot of the funding we're looking for is coming from the province, from philanthropists, and from the feds. There are silos with money in particular for those projects. With your support, we can go after those guys for that money that otherwise would go to different communities. That's an awful lot of money we're talking about. So in terms of culturally being awash in the arts, I think it's a damn good thing. I really do. In terms of economic development, we have laid out exactly what we're looking at in terms of the monies that will be brought in. And don't forget, we're in a community now that is losing our natural resource industries. What are we going to do to replace it? Well, we have a business plan. We're on edition 35 of that very organic business plan that talks precisely about bringing money into the community. Not everybody likes art, but everybody likes money, and our engine is designed to do precisely that for the Valley.
Thank you. I don't have anyone else on my speakers list. Director Douglas and then Staples.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just quickly wanted to thank Mr. Hildebrand and Mr. Coulson and the rest of the team with the Cowichan Public Art Gallery for all your work in bringing this forward. As you said, there's been a lot of volunteer hours have gone into this, and this isn't just some back-of-the-napkin proposal. You have developed a very well-researched business case, and as you explained earlier, shown that it is the norm in many other communities for local governments to play a role in supporting these facilities. So again, just want to express my appreciation for all the work that went into developing this concept, and look forward to further discussions about how to move this forward.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Director Staples.
Thank you, and thank you for your presentation. And, you know, I echo what Director Robb, I was going to say, has just said. And I also just want to put out there, too, that I think one of the things that we have to be really cautious of is that there are always a lot of, and particularly right now it feels, and I know that if we go back into history of people around this table and other tables, you'll hear people saying the same thing about all the other investments that we have to make all the time. But I don't think that we can't exclude. They're not exclusive. We have to look at, you know, what supports a really healthy community, and that means being diverse in the way that we invest in our communities. And so I just wanted to bring that up as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Seeing none, thank you both very much, and to your group as well for all the work. And we'll look forward to, well, I probably won't be here next time you're here, but thank you so much. And I know the group will look forward to your next presentation and further discussions.
Thank you, Chairman Stone, very much. And I think we will likely miss you when you are gone.
Thank you.
Thanks for all your input in the community, Mr. Stone, and an invite to the current show that's opening tomorrow night. It's an amazing liaison with the City of Duncan in presenting the totem maquettes that are within the community and a number of very exclusive art prints. Mr. Wilson, you'd find it as a real eye-opener in the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Boyd.
Thank you, Chair. We have the report from the chairperson.
I have no report. I'll have a report when I have my last meeting in 2 weeks' time. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. We move to 7 correspondence. It's correspondent from Tricia Maya, Manager, Legislative Services, Corporate Officer of September 5th, 2024, from the Municipality of North Cowichan regarding the temporary appointment to the CVRD Board for information.
Thank you and welcome. I'm sorry, our temporary new director on the board. So just so I don't get it wrong again, can you tell me how to pronounce your last name properly? Callio?
The last name is pronounced Callio.
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 Is that right? Did I get it right?
You did.
Okay, because otherwise I'm going to mess it up. I still can't do Director Seagull's name properly.
I don't think I've ever had it pronounced properly for the first try, except for in Holland.
Okay, thank you. And welcome to the board. And
you.
whether it's a temporary appointment or ongoing, we're welcome. We're glad to have you here and welcome. Sorry, Director McGonigal, on this information item.
I'm not sure that the temporary director has been vetted by this table. I'm wondering if that is appropriate, or does it just come from the North Cowichan Council?
This is a prerogative North Cowichan Council, yes.
Thank you.
It must be hot in here because the wheels are already falling off and we're only a few items into our meeting. Maybe the influence of our new director is troubling. No, I'm kidding. Thanks, Mike. All right, Ms. Boyd.
Thank you, Chair. We have no information items. We move to number 9, commission reports. CSR 1, report and recommendations of the Electoral Area Services Committee meeting of September 4th, 2024. Director Morrison.
Director Morrison, over to you.
Thank you, Chair Stone. We have CR1 from the meeting of September the 4th. We have recommendations C1 through 5 and R4 and 5 for all directors. Anybody want any of those items pulled? Seeing none, I'll move those items.
And seconded by Director Segal. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries.
For electoral area directors, we have R2 and R3, and if nobody wants any of those items pulled, I will move those 2 items.
Seconded by Director Wilson. Any discussion on those items? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries.
That concludes my report.
Thank you, Director Morrison. Ms. Boyd.
Thank you, Chair. We have CR2, report and recommendations from the Committee of the Whole meeting of this morning, September 11th, 24. Director McGonigal.
Director McGonigal.
Thank you, Chair. Your Committee of the Whole reports and recommends from this morning's meeting that the Cowichan Valley Regional District enter into a 5-year transit service agreement with Halalt First Nation commencing October 1, 2024, as described in the staff report. Transit service agreement with Halalt First Nation that was held at the September 11th, 2024 Committee of the Whole meeting. I move.
Seconded by Director Morrison. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries. Ms. Boyd.
Thank you, Chair. We have director reports.
No director reports on the agenda, so I believe we're moving to staff reports.
Thank you, Chair. SR1, staff report from the Strategic Initiatives Division regarding Island Rail Corridor Project update.
Good afternoon, directors. This is a report for information, and I'm pleased to introduce Soleil Tarani from Stantec, who will be giving a PowerPoint presentation, supported by Johan from Stantec and Lindsay from Modus. And following that, we have a video to share with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present at this board meeting. It's such a pleasure for me. If you guys don't mind, I'm just going to start sharing a screen.
Please do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's going to full screen mode. Can everyone see my screen?
We can. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's such a pleasure. So my name is Saleh. I'm a senior rail engineer and project manager with Stantec. And today, in collaboration with my colleagues, Lindsay and Johan, we're going to have a short presentation to provide update regarding CVRD Island Rail Corridor towards a shared vision project. We're going to start with the project goal and project overview, a quick discussion on the project team and the companies involved in this project. And as this is an effort towards a shared vision, we're going to discuss the phases of the project on their visioning process slides. As there are 7 different technical teams working together, shoulder by shoulder in this project, we're going to have a couple of slides on the technical disciplines. And then Lindsay, who's leading the engagement scope of the project, is going to provide an update on the communications and engagement piece of the project. Then we're going to have a very interesting, wonderful video prepared by CVRD regarding the rail corridor. It's around 6 minutes. Then quickly, we're going to discuss the next phases of the project, and we're going to have time to answer the questions. So what is our project goal? Our goal is to develop a shared vision for the future of the Island Rail Corridor. This was initiated by the province in collaboration with 5 regional districts, including CVRD and 14 First Nations and Island Corridor Foundation, or ICF. Funding was provided to support the project and streamline the participation. And the goal is to come up with a shared vision that reflects the vision of all parties involved. Discussing on the project overview, it's regarding the Island Rail Corridor. Island Rail Corridor is also known as Esquimalt and Nanaimo Railway, or ENN Railway. And it was incorporated in 1883 and was partially constructed and built in 1886. Then its lands got expanded. And this was required to fulfill the agreement, which brought British Columbia into the Confederation to become a province of Canada. It's a lengthy corridor, but among the lands, roughly 71.78 kilometers of the corridor is within the CVRD region. And roughly 4.85 kilometers of that is bisecting First Nations reserve lands. So it's no longer providing passenger services. This corridor provides freight services in some regions, such as Comox. And it's now owned by Island Corridor Foundation, or ICF, including members, owners from 5 regional districts and 14 First Nations. The project team. So CVRD has been working with 6 different companies in this project. Working with Stantec on the technical side of the project, including rail teams, transportation and land use planning teams, a couple of environmental teams on natural habitat remediation, and climate change team. I'm going to discuss these technical teams later on in 2 slides. And Stantec has been working in collaboration with Moody's, who's leading the public, stakeholder, and First Nation engagement scope of the work. And also working with Care Square, who's working on the business case or options assessment scope of the project. In addition, CVRD is working with Bone Creative and About Here to develop graphics and videos required for the project. We're going to go through that at the end of this presentation. And also work with Liquor to develop GIS story maps already accessible and launched in Plan Your Cochin website. So what is the visioning process of this project? So we have 3 different phases in this project. Phase 1 has been fully completed, started in April 2024, wrapped up in June. We've been doing a lot of background review analysis on the rail corridor. Technical teams worked in collaboration with CVRD and regional districts, province, and ICF. We developed a few short documents based on the background review, which I'm going to elaborate on, called Mini Backgrounders, and they were presented at the working group number 1 in June. And then in phase 2, we have been doing a lot of work regarding the engagement scope of the project. So First Nation outreach was started, stakeholder engagement piece has been going full speed. We did have the online survey created and launched, and public open house well planned, and it's going to be happening in 3 days. And along this engagement scope in phase 2, we are all of our technical teams are working together, expanding those technical reports and memos, which are going to be provided at the end of phase 2. And phase 3, which is going to be the main part of this project, hasn't started yet, but it's going to be happening this fall and early winter next year, where we're going to have a synthesis of engagement results. And based on those results, we're going to do option assessment and development of a business case. Of course, in all of these phases, we have ongoing collaborations with different parties, regional districts, province, ICF. At the end of phase 3, we're going to have a big report assembling all the report findings to provide recommendations towards a shared corridor vision. So we're here at phase 2 at this point. Quickly going through the technical disciplines involved. As I mentioned, we have 7 different technical teams working all together alongside the engagement to provide the required information. So in phase 1, as mentioned, we did a lot of background information review. We summarized that all into short documents called mini backgrounders, and that was required to kickstart the project, especially the engagement piece, and provide some technical input to the engagement team. And all of those documents were presented in working group number 1. And phase 2 is focused on technical memos alongside the engagement scope. In addition to those mini backgrounders, our rail team did a significant comprehensive study or literature review on the history of the railway, provided a comprehensive memo that included history of the land ownership and also some review of the routes, track routes, such as track alignment, track stations, track condition, track volumes, and also summary of some freight analysis and business case studies which have been completed regarding the corridor. And at the end, a synthesis of some of the recent work completed by ICF and MOTI were presented in that rail history memo. 2 of our key teams are working together, transportation planning team and land use planning team. They have been studying the corridor, creating different segments along the corridor to present opportunities and constraints for different segments. And as soon as the results of the engagement part are ready, then they're going to work on identifying priorities for each of those options along the corridor. Then we have our climate change team. They developed also mini backgrounders, now working on their technical memos due in September, and they've been doing a lot of desktop screening of climate hazards along the corridor. They have been having different interviews regarding climate change risks with CVRD and local government representatives, and then they're going to summarize all those climate risk assessment into their report. And 2 environmental teams have been working together. Environmental remediation team and environmental natural habitat team. So the first one, remediation. They have been also studying the track and also impacted parcels along the corridor to come up with some cost estimates for remedial efforts if required, and also find the risks with that and identify potential remedial fundings if any remediation is required. And also our natural habitat has been working on potential constraints along the rail corridor using massive GIS exercise, and they have been working on constraint maps for species as risks, watercourse crossings, and also potential permitting requirement in terms of a regulatory roadmap, and also additional environmental work if required in next phases of the project. And the last but not the least, one of the key parts of the project is the options assessment. So when the results of the engagement piece are available, they're going to do the assessment of the potential corridor options, both quantitative and qualitative, to assess those options. As Johan is in the call and he's leading the technical side mainly on the transportation, I was wondering, Johan, if you would like to add any further details on this slide.
Thank you, Saleh. Good afternoon, everyone, to the chair and area directors. I have a couple of points I would just like to re-emphasize in the stream of work. First of all, a large amount of background analysis work has been undertaken, as Saleh has alluded to, specifically on transportation, land use, climate, and the environment. However, there's still a significant amount of work that needs to be done to arrive at the identification of a shared vision for the corridor. And it's important that we are all clear that a shared vision obviously requires alignment of an agreement or consensus between the multiple partners in this project. To date, there has been no consensus between parties on an overall corridor vision. And the engagement with partners and stakeholders has certainly already identified a number of major themes for a vision for this corridor. So therefore, an analysis of the findings of stakeholder engagement and public input will be underway shortly, and we will be working towards limiting and consolidating options for the future use of this corridor, as was alluded to in terms of a options assessment of the impacts, both qualitative and quantitative. Thanks, Saleh.
Thanks very much, Johan. Now we can go to the engagement scope, and Lindsay, if you can provide some update regarding the communications and engagement, I would truly appreciate it.
Thank you, Sally. Just confirming you can hear me. Great. So as Johan noted, there are multiple processes going on to work towards a shared vision. This slide summarizes some of the processes that the CBRD is participating in that are being led by others. That includes the provincial working group, which is meetings led by the province and have been ongoing since 2023, as well as collaboration being led by the Island Corridor Foundation. And those are ongoing since the spring and will continue through the project. Next slide, please. The CBRD is also leading, as a part of the CBRD's visioning process, a number of engagement activities. This includes First Nations engagement. You'll see the 6 nations that are listed. 3 are bisected, have lands that are bisected by the rail corridor, and the other 3 are within close proximity or have interest. We are also leading a regional district staff working group, and those have been ongoing since the spring. And we have a CBRD working group, which includes regional and municipal staff who are participating in the review of technical deliverables and informing the process. And those have also been ongoing since the spring. Next slide. Johan mentioned some of the outputs of the stakeholder engagement. We've hosted 19 one-on-one interviews with stakeholders representing diverse interests. Those organizations have expertise in transportation, agriculture, economic development and tourism, the environment, and utilities. Our interviews were focused on hearing feedback on potential opportunities, concerns, and the overall vision. As you might expect, the feedback was diverse, and not all feedback was aligned. For example, some felt very strongly that a rail should be brought back to the corridor, while others felt strongly that only a trail should be provided. There were some themes that were shared. That includes recognition that the corridor as a continuous tract of land provides incredible opportunity, and it should be maintained continuous as much as possible. And that visioning for the future presents a really important opportunity for the CBRD and the region as a whole to achieve community needs, like more island connectivity and a potential shift to more sustainable modes of transportation. We also have an online survey, which is currently open. The survey was launched on August 26th and closes at the end of September. We've had great uptake of the survey so far. As of September 9th, we've had 3,300 responses. I think this really highlights how important this project is and the corridor is to people and how much they care about it. The survey includes 14 questions and asks about people's vision for the future, their preferred transportation modes, and their priorities around other potential complementary uses that could be achieved. A key milestone in our public engagement process is the upcoming open house, which is scheduled for this Saturday, September 14th from 10 to 2 p.m. at Charles Huey Park in Duncan. So we'll have tents set up outside with display panels that provide some key takeaways and summaries of some of Saleh and his team's technical deliverables. There will be a rail video, which you'll see later, as well as interactive mapping table and more. So given the level of interest that we've had in the survey and stakeholder interviews, we're anticipating a really great turnout for the event. We hope to see you there. Okay, next slide, Sally. Finally, we've been advertising and promoting knowledge and awareness of the project and events through a wide variety of communication materials. There's been a social media ad campaign running through August and through September. Print media, including newspaper ads, mail drop, and posters. There's a project website on Plan Your Cowichan, and it includes an interactive story map where people can learn more about the corridor. We've also had a news release and televised interview, and the video production, which we're excited to share with you today. And I believe that's all for me, Sally.
Thank you very much, Lindsay. Great presentation.
Thanks.
Now we are on the rail video. I believe Coralie is planning to play this right in the boardroom.
Yeah, while we
stop
prepare
sharing.
that, if I can just take a moment, I do want to recognize both Andrew, Peter, and Marino, Joe from Sinqua Dancers and Performance for coming and sharing culture with us today. And I want to recognize you in particular, not just in this project, but throughout the region, how you've brought so many communities together in learning and understanding about Cowichan and broader Coast Salish culture within our region. So I'm really thankful, and I raise my hands to you both and to your whole team. I have to say, and I know it's not directly related to this, but at the Smanim event in Cowichan Tribes just a few weeks ago, it was particularly powerful. Your performances there, and I know what it meant to the community, and I was really honored to be there to witness that day. So I just want to share with you our gratitude for not just being here today, but how you participate and raise everyone up through the region with your sharing of culture. And I see it in every corner of the region. You know, the Young Wolves in Staminas have been inspired by your work. And I know it goes from corner to corner to coast and north to south in our region. So you really led the way, and thank you both very much. Aichika. So Coralie, yes, please go ahead.
I believe I should stop sharing, right?
Yes, please.
Sure, thank you.
Just 2 seconds. Just while they're sorting that out, just some thanks here to Thomas from Island Corridor Foundation and SVI for taking us out to film the rails. And thank you for coming this afternoon. So the video will be shown on loop at the public open house this weekend on Saturday. And Soleil, back to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Crowley. This was beautiful, amazing work. Can everyone see my screen again?
Yes.
Thank you very much. So the project next steps, as Lindsay explained, we're going to have the open house in 3 days on September 14th. Survey is open on the website, accessible until September 30th. And the final report is due by
Good
February
afternoon.
25 and will be presented at the CVR
No, that
board
was
meeting.
me.
This was the end of the
Good
presentation.
afternoon and
Now
welcome
we
to
have,
the regular
time
Electoral
for
Area
answering
Services
questions.
Committee
Thank you all
meeting
for
of
joining us.
Wednesday, July the 3rd. My name is Ian.
Little technical issue there. I think if you want to just back up a few sentences in your comments there, there was a little bit of a technical glitch on our side.
Absolutely. I was just going through the next steps of the project. As Lindsay explained, we're going to have the open house in 3 days on September 14th. And survey is open until end of September. And the final report, which assembles the findings of the project with the recommendation towards a shared vision, is due by February 2025 and will be presented to the CVRD board. So this was the last slide, and now we have time to answer all the questions. Really appreciate taking the time and the opportunity to present here. It was such a pleasure.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Before we move to questions or discussion, I'd just like to ask Mr. Marino and Andrew if you'd like to address us at all or have anything to say. I just, with respect so much for your participation in this work and
I'd just like to thank you all for having us here today. It was a great pleasure to be a part of this film. We were out there for, I believe, just about 8 hours, I think, in total for the little bit that you've seen there. But I was just talking to Coralie when we got here. This is something we've been getting a lot more of quite recent. We're actually currently doing filming for a documentary on Zinqua, based on the Zinqua opera that was formed in the 40s. And it's something that you had mentioned, that basically the big reason behind that is because we've been a big part of a lot of the smaller communities who've lost their culture when it was banned some time ago. And to be out there and actually show people what we have with our culture, our singing, our dancing. We have members that go from age 4 up to 70 around there, and who still dance at that age as well as sing, and starting at the age of 3 or 4 and dancing. And this is something that we're very proud of and very great to be a part of, to show something like this. So thank you.
thank you so much, and really appreciate, again, for participating in this and all the work you do throughout the region. So thank you so much. So we'll turn to the board for some questions and discussion. I have Director Wilson first.
Oh, first again. Hey. Thank you very much for that. This is a great presentation. I am a great believer in rail. I wish it could come back again in this particular case. However, you've mentioned one of the phrases there is potential uses. This covers a huge range. Have you had any general idea of the things that are coming back? And that is a big response in a very short time on the public, 3,300. Have you had any time to assess a general thought train there? It's not meant to be a pun by any means.
Please go ahead.
I can respond to that one. We haven't begun to assess the responses. It would be a bit premature. So yeah, we're really looking forward to seeing what people do say though.
Thank you. Follow up?
Yeah, but anything as far as the potential uses? Are we looking at trails, or are we trying to bring back some of the rail? That's a big question, I know. Do you have any ideas on that?
Perhaps I can respond to that
Yep.
if I may. Um, as I mentioned, a couple of major themes have started to emerge from our engagement processes and activities. And really, I think they can pretty much be summed up in terms of transportation-related ones, and there may be others. Transportation-related ones is obviously addressing the bisected First Nation reserve lands. That is obviously one that is high up and first and foremost in people's minds. And then as far as transportation is concerned, first of all, obviously there is the one that relates to maintaining a rail corridor. There certainly is an emerging theme on converting and integrating the corridor into a trail and active mode facility to promote alternative mode connections, tourism and such like activities. And then a third transportation-related one that has been identified is the provision of an alternative routing for emergency services. I think that came very much on the heels of what happened on the highway to Port Alberni last year with that devastating fire that they had. And then a theme that has also been identified, it's more infrastructural in nature, is utilizing the corridor for the location of infrastructure such as water, hydro, communications, fiber optic, and so on. And then obviously a number of smaller activities have been identified, such as urban gardening and utilizing existing infrastructure like station buildings, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I think, as Lindsay pointed out, it is somewhat early days yet. We are looking forward to working through and assessing and evaluating the results of the engagement, public input, in order to refine our options and consolidate options as best as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. And I would echo it's early days. Let's not soothsay on what may be coming, but maybe look forward to what the results say. Director Douglas and then McGonigal.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I have several questions, so perhaps cut me off when you see fit, and I can come back for another.
So we're moving on to, sorry, no, just kidding, go ahead.
So my questions relate more to the technical backgrounders that are on the website with regards to the Gallon Rail Corridor project. So I'll start with the background on the transportation. Sorry, they're referenced in the report.
Okay.
Like, it's an update on the work done to date, and this is a critical part of the work done
Okay.
today. Yeah. So there is a backgrounder on transportation planning. So it notes that previous studies show there's a high cost and low demand for rail service, and yeah, not much of a future for freight and little appetite for rail. But I would be curious to hear from the Stantec team just the basis for some of these arguments. So I would note there is a petition to the federal government right now. I think it's got almost up to 22,000 signatures of people who are asking to restore rail. There's also a number of studies that were undertaken by Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure in recent years. So there's one from 2022 on freight that did identify significant opportunities with less investment than previously identified. And I say that recognizing that infrastructure costs have gone up during the past 2 years. There's also a 2020 study from the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure that estimated the cost for restoring rail to be around $4.6 million per kilometer. For the ultimate upgrade phase, that would allow a higher volume of freight and commuter service compared to about $25 million per kilometer for the Highway 1 bus lanes in Victoria. So just wondering if the team at Stantec could comment on some of the initial conclusions reached in that technical backgrounder, and perhaps could go back and maybe take a look at some of those other earlier studies to see if there may be some room to refine some of those statements that were made.
Thank you, and I will also add that the short sea shipping study, I got it right, also pointed to the integral requirement for freight rail to make that transportation and goods movement initiative. I think that was 2021. That study was released, so I would also ask the Stantec team to comment on those studies. Is someone
Absolutely.
from, please?
Thank you very much. I believe, Johan, you would be the best person to respond on the transportation.
Yeah, those are the most contemporary studies that were done by the Ministry of Transportation, so would be the most relevant to the discussion.
Well, certainly we can look into the study that you referred to, the 2021 study, which is something that is not reflected in that backgrounder. And point taken in terms of if we can whether we can update the content of the backgrounder with a little bit more detail in terms of more detailed costs and so on. But the intent of the backgrounder really was to just provide a high-level summary of the findings of work that was done to date. So the intent was to be short and sweet and to the point, just stating what the outcomes of so many of these studies were.
Sorry, forgive me, but are you saying that you did not take the most recent studies by the Ministry of Transportation as the most recent information to create that backgrounder?
No, I beg your pardon. No, the most recent studies by the ministry, yes, absolutely, they are reflected in the backgrounder. But I think you just referred to a 2021 study regarding shipping, if I heard you correctly, which is not reflected.
Okay, I'll let Director Douglas continue his line of questioning, but I'll have some further clarification on the conclusions of the backgrounder as well.
Sorry, just if I could very quickly add to Johan's response. In addition to the mini backgrounders, we also provided the rail history memo and different parts of that rail history memo, which is also uploaded on Plan Your Cochin website and was presented and reviewed in working group number 1, goes through all of those studies like freight analysis, business cases studies by HDR 2010, 2021, WSP's report, the other report by HMM. All of those reports were kind of skimmed through, reviewed, and summary of them were provided in that rail history memo. And on the very last chapter of that memo, we had the synthesis of recent work completed by MOTI and ICF. Again, a lot of those studies were all, reviewed and found their findings. The studies on the passenger forecast, or those 3 phases in the WSP report for the initial, activation of the track, the second phase and ultimate phase. All of those have been kind of reviewed and explained in the rail history memo. While the mini background, it was like very short format 5-slide presentation to support the engagement piece.
Thank you. I'll return the floor to Director Douglas, but I do have to say that those mini backgrounders can have the effect of influencing people's thoughts when they participate in surveys, and if that's the information most people will access, I would find some concern with the framing of that narrative. But back to you, Director Douglas.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So the other question I had, so I'm going to jump to another one of the backgrounders, but it's the one on the climate hazard exposure. So it looks at what some of the potential impacts could be on the rail corridor as a result of climate change and more frequent extreme weather events. What I think would be a valuable exercise in this work would be to look at not just how climate change would impact the corridor itself, but looking at the broader regional road networks and how climate change can impact those broader road networks and relative to the rail corridor. So to give you an example, if you look at some of the arguments around transportation, how it relates to climate change adaptation, there's value in having a certain level of redundancy in your transportation network. So for example, if the Highway 1 is cut off because of wildfires or flooding, then you've got that alternative route to move people and goods around. And I'd like to see see some of the analysis through this visioning exercise, consider that aspect, which I know the consulting team did bring that up. That's come up in some of the initial engagement as potential future use of the corridor, having that as that alternate route. But again, would like to see a bit more analysis on how maintaining that corridor could help us in terms of having that extra transportation route if we are cut off from Highway 1 as a result of climate change. And I've got one more.
Go ahead.
Really quickly. So the other one is with regards to the land use planning technical backgrounder. So provincially now, with the province's focus on increasing housing supply in areas around major transportation routes, they are advocating this concept of the transit-oriented development centers, where you've got your major transportation routes and hubs, and trying to increase the housing density in those areas. And as part of this exercise, I'd be interested in seeing how some of these analysis around future land use surrounding the rail corridor might fit with some of the provincial policies and direction right now, again, around increasing housing density in those hub areas. And finally, with the land, I believe it's in the land use technical backgrounder, so it talks about the costs of the cost for remediating the rail corridor if we were to remove the rail line itself. And I believe I've got the number jotted down here somewhere. It's, if you bear with me for 1 second here, I believe it's 75 million just for the portion of the corridor that goes through the Couch Valley Regional District. Yes, so to the remediation costs to bring it back to an industrial land use, bring it to an industrial land use standard. The estimate for the 72 kilometers through the Cowichan Valley Regional District is from 75.6 to $187.2 million. And wondering if the consulting team can comment on that. If that were to be a direction we're going to move in, who would we expect would cover that cost of 75 to $187 million for remediation? Who would be liable for it? Would that be looking to the senior levels of government to cover that, or is the expectation that the regional district itself would play a role in that?
Thank you. I'll put that through to Saleh and his team.
Thank you very much. Very good points, all noted, and would be addressed in the memos and reports. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to pass it to Director McGonigal, but I do also want to say that the engagement with the Ministry of Transportation on the corridor use really picked up when the failure of the Malahat during climate-related weather events. Because of the ability of the rail corridor to sustain those events. Surely the water ran down the side of the mountain across the corridor and across the highway, but thankfully the majority of the rail corridor was resilient to those impacts without any investment or improvements. So I think that's an important note that Director Douglas makes, as well as a critical point that I think, especially a team like Stantec being multidisciplinary around land use and community planning, would look into would be the land use patterns along the corridor, in particular in terms of the housing needs of all of the regions along the corridor, and already the density of development patterns that of the settlement patterns historically along the rail corridor, as well as the future opportunities for densifying land use along the corridor in favor of those transit-oriented or transportation-oriented growth nodes. And I'll note that we're looking out a window here where the City of Duncan has approved a significant density development directly adjacent to the existing rail corridor as well. Director McGonigal.
Thank you, Chair. Great foresight on the City of Duncan for doing that. I was going to also piggyback on the housing transportation focus of this government and looking at how commuter rail could possibly enhance that, but that has been eloquently spoken of by the previous two speakers. What really stood out to me during the video was the demise of the current infrastructure, how it has been decimated in the past decade from what it was to what it is today. For instance, some of the fire hazard through that video was well noted in my observation, and another impact of climate change should something happen within that could be a mitigating factor. I would hope that in the final report, we have many options, and I encourage everyone who is watching to partake in the survey so that everybody who is interested can have a voice. Look forward to the final report. Thank you.
Thank you, Director McGonigal. I don't have other speakers on my list. I will go back to Director Douglas. I'll just take other first-time speakers. Director Justice.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a more general question, which is based in, admittedly, a sort of a lack of understanding, but what I would like to understand better, if somebody could help me with that, is the relationship of the Island Corridor Foundation to the work that is being described here. My understanding is that the Island Corridor Foundation does have a board that is made up of representatives of all the area, and I think Director Morrison is the rep on the board. And yet it seems to be the CVRD that's directing the work within the Cowichan Valley Regional District. So if I could just have some...
I may be able to illuminate that. This is a staff-led process, not elected officials, which make up the board of the ICF and obviously this table. When the province set this out, much to I think maybe some of our elected brethren's chagrin, we were not invited to those discussions or those tables. It's been largely, at least at that level, a staff-led technical type process. The nations have kind of a mixture of technical and elected representatives at those tables, but there are not elected representatives at the table. We could ask our friends at the Island Corridor Foundation, Thomas is here, as well as, sorry, there's a screen in my way, how they're reporting to the board, or maybe Director Morrison, if you have any insights on how that's being reported to the board. But in my experience during my time on the board, it's kept at quite a high level, pushing towards the conclusion of these reports. But Director Morrison, I don't know if you have anything to add.
Not much in that you're right. This has been a provincially driven and funded exercise, and I'm viewing this more as listening and hearing as opposed to playing an active role. And so, yeah, I'm in listening mode at this point, and would love if we could have the ICF make comment if that's something that would be appropriate or not.
Yep, go ahead. Thomas, please welcome.
Hello, directors. I'm Thomas Bevan, the CEO of the Island Corridor Foundation, and it's great to be here with you today. Great report to the Stantec team and to the staff here at the CVRD. We've been meeting with them a lot over the past summer months, and really awesome progress. We've been meeting with a lot of the other regional districts and nations. We were actually just with Cowichan and Malahat this morning, and similar type of work is happening all around the corridor. And that's very much the role that the Island Corridor Foundation is really trying to lean into for this exercise, is to be that neutral hub of coordination. I keep saying if we want to beat a corridor, we got to think like a corridor and act like a corridor, and that's including these consultant teams to make sure we have a really complementary process, because really the sum of everything together will be more than the individual parts, and so much of the corridor is interrelated. For example, the airport, right? It's not, I believe, technically in the CVRD, but it really is an important stakeholder in this mix. Top Shelf Feeds is a really important industrial supplier of island farms everywhere up and down the island. It's in Cowichan, but how it connects to the port of Nanaimo or potentially a port in Alberni is very much a topic that the consultants in Alberni at least are talking about. We were out there for the fall fair this past weekend, and there's a survey going on there. So back to the original question of what is the ICF doing in all this. We're kind of the traffic controller of sorts, and so Stantec and the staff team here at CVRD have been great at providing us with their information, which we can subsequently share with the other consultants, nations, and regional districts. So it's a lot of work in terms of the different perspectives, but I think we're really getting there in terms of coming to some common understanding of principles of what's important to islanders and nations up and down the island. Maybe not quite uses, but things around economic prosperity and resilience we're hearing time and time again. So open to any other questions too you may have.
Thank you. And I do want to try and keep this with our consultants and our board table, but thank you, Mr. Bevan. Appreciate that. Director Justice, follow up, you're good? I don't have any other hands. I do want to say that through all of this, vision can be opinion, ideas, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what the vision is and how much of that vision is shared. Also want to be forward-looking. The reality is that we're facing all kinds of challenges. I've had a unique opportunity over the last couple of months to traverse the Island Highway from Victoria through Nanaimo in particular, and I have to tell you, it feels dramatically different than it did just even 5 years ago, not 10, not 20 years ago. A drive that I used to find as enjoyable now feels harrowing, and I'm not over-exaggerating. And I was recently in an accident here, not my fault, ICBC clarified with that, but the density of traffic and the challenges around transportation are only going to be magnified over the years and decades to come. So I think it's really critical that as we do this work, we're casting a technical planner's eye toward the future resilience and prosperity of Vancouver Island. In the new role that I'm taking on, I very much believe in Vancouver Island as the coast, as the center of innovation for our country. I think that we need to be looking forward in a really collaborative way, so this is an important exercise, but not to lose sight of the future realities that we're looking at, and throw the baby out with the bathwater, if you will, in the short-term goals that different groups may have to their own ends. It's our responsibility, I think, to look forward to the future of our children and grandchildren and ensure that we're setting aside the infrastructure that's going to be needed. I want to thank our Stantec team very much and our staff for contributing to this report. I believe this is just here for information today. So thank you also to our board members for good questions and Stantec for good work. The final question I have for the consulting team is, will there be engagement outside the core? I looked with jealousy to the event at the park this weekend in the core, but I know there's a high degree of interest both in the north, south, and in the west. Will there be other engagement activities like that, or is it only being done here in the core?
The physical open house and event will be only in Duncan, with this online survey being more broad reaching. The opportunities to provide feedback are through the survey at the open house, so folks who aren't able to attend the open house won't have a chance to speak directly with the planning team, but they will have an opportunity to weigh in equally as those who do attend the open house.
Okay, thank you. I'll give the last question to Director Douglas.
Yeah, really quickly, Mr. Chair, and I guess it's more of a comment than a question. I know the report from Stantec notes there has been some challenges in terms of consultation with First Nations, and I know from my perspective, if we don't have that meaningful reconciliation, it's going to be very challenging to have our final report with recommendations come before the board early next year and to really get behind it if First Nations aren't behind it as well. The other concern is having the 5 different regional districts all doing their own exercises. I understand in the report there has been coordination between the 5 different regional districts, but I would be concerned that we're going to be in a spot next winter, early in 2025, where you've got 5 different visions for the future of the corridors. The more those can be aligned, I think we're going to be in a much better position going forward.
Thank you very much, Director Douglas. I would echo those sentiments, and I think these were comments we brought forward at the beginning of this process and why we encourage the province to hold tight to this process and lead it. I believe this is the situation we've ended up in through the ministry and the framework that was set out, but I would agree that there's going to need to be a further dialogue between the regions, and the nation piece is critically important to this conversation in that shared visiting process. I don't know if we have a final response from our Stantec folks, or you'll just take those comments under advisement, but I'll just give it back over to you and your team, Soleil.
Thank you very much for the notes. It's fully noted. No further responses from me. Johan, Lindsay, anything from you?
Nothing from me. Thank you. Thank you.
Nothing from me either. Thank you.
Thank you very much. With that was an information item. I see no further hands. We'll take a 10-minute recess. Be back just after 3 o'clock. Thank you. Thank you again
Thank you
to
all.
the
Have a good
Stantec
afternoon.
folks. Have a great day.
Bye.
All right, we're back. Ms. Boyd.
Thank you, Chair. SR2, staff report from the Emergency Management Division regarding Penelakut Tribe Fire Dispatch Agreement 2024 to 2028.
And we do have the recommendation in front of you. If there are any questions, or moved by Director Morrison, seconded by Director Justice. Any discussion? Director Martman.
Just want to take a moment to explain how I think this is such a critical thing that we provide. And I don't know how many people are aware of the medical response system on Penelakut. So this goes back to another year, decades ago, when I got involved with Penelakut and their ability to help their community. It comes through their fire dispatch. And it goes through, at that time, the women and the teenagers of the community. So it helped paramedics that went over to be able to respond with them, help them enter into the community. And so it really is a little piece that the CVRD does. And I didn't know it back then. It was something I learned, but it is a huge piece for that community. So I think I just wanted to acknowledge that these types of agreements are really critical for somebody that's injured, ill, and needs help. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Martman. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. SR3, staff report from the Community Planning Division regarding the external referrals policy.
Thank you, and you see the report and the recommendation in front of you. Any questions or looking for a motion? Moved by Director Segal, seconded by Director McGonigal. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries. Ms. Boyd.
Thank you, Chair. SR4, report from the Inspection Enforcement Division regarding the appointment of screening officers.
Again, you see the report before you. We do have bylaw staff here for questions, or I'm looking for a motion. Moved by Director Calliew, seconded by Director Segal. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries.
SR5, verbal report from the Chief Administrative Officer regarding UBCM ministerial meeting request update.
Ms. Miles Wilson.
Good afternoon, everybody. I wanted to provide you with a bit of an update as we've heard back now from UBCM regarding the meetings that were requested for this coming convention, which is going to be next week in Vancouver. We had requested meetings of the Minister of Housing, Transportation and Infrastructure, Waterland and Resource Stewardship. We unfortunately were not successful in getting ministers' meetings this year. We did receive a meeting regarding private managed forest lands with the parliamentary secretary, which we're working on finalizing materials for. And so we didn't receive the minister's meeting as requested, but they did allow us a meeting with the provincial official. So we will be moving forwards with that meeting. We have been invited by two of our municipal partners to participate in meetings that they received with ministers, and we'll be supporting those meetings, and we're working with their staff to prepare for those. So for the town of Lake Cowichan with the Minister of Waterland and Resource Stewardship, and with the City of Duncan with the Minister of Housing. So just wanted to say that the issues that we were going to raise are being raised by our partners, and so we'll have an opportunity there to support them in those important conversations. We also received a senior level staff meeting with the Assistant Deputy Minister of Waterlands and Resource Stewardship to discuss concerns regarding enforcement of environmental infractions. And so that's with Mr. James Mack. And so that is a meeting that we were having as well with senior staff. So unfortunately, didn't receive all that you had requested, but still going to put the effort into the ones we did receive. So what I wanted to pose to you today as well is regarding attendance, because I know there's a transition underway with the board chair. And so happy to receive direction here on who you'd like to be attending these meetings as we finalize the packages.
Thank you. Well, it'd be my recommendation that the vice chair attend any of the meetings that I go to, because that would make the most sense. Our chair elections are obviously in November, as they are every year. So, the timing for that makes sense if Director Segal is going to continue in that role for the month of October. I would also say that we have on some of those meetings, I think Director Morrison and Director Nicholson, or is it Director Dex, or are joining Director McGonigal? Well, it will be Director Sandu, alternate Director Sandu, and Acting Mayor during your absence. For the meetings on the riparian areas, which is tied into that environmental enforcement piece, because it's particularly important in the Lake Cowichan region. And I know that we do also have a regional health chairs meeting that I'll talk to Director Segal about regarding the urgent care and family doctor crisis, closures of urgent care and lack of family doctors in the regions, plural, because it is seeming to be a bit of a epidemic of its own across the province. Director Wilson.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. That's good news about the meeting with the minister, with the health authorities. And this sharing, Danielle, are there any munis or RDs who have a meeting with any of the Ministry of Health that we could join in on? Because Mayor Douglas and myself have something that we'd like to bring forward. But if there's something happening at the meetings that you have as the Health Council, then that would be great as well.
Yeah, and I was meaning to speak with both of you as well. I've had some meetings with Island Health in the last couple of weeks, as well as doctors in the north area.
Yeah.
And retired doctors as well, and around some of the same issues. And the first thing I said to my deputy and soon-to-be acting Mayor Mackay was to connect with the two of you on the family doctor issues as well as the urgent care issues, because I did get a lot of good information from my meetings with Island Health last week. So we can take that up away from this table, but definitely will involve both of you in all of those conversations as well.
Great, and just to add to this, this is no longer a crisis. I wish I could use a phrase that was used at our last advisory panel. I won't, because it might upset a few people. It's no longer a crisis. Thank you.
It's worse. Thank you. Any further discussion on these items right now? I'm happy to take this up offline with people and make some arrangements prior to the meetings starting. I think on Monday is our first meeting. So we can connect over the next couple of days after we review, because there have been changes, like what I want to say demotion to the parliamentary secretary, but the Waterland Resource Stewardship around the private managed forest lands, we had met at North Cowichan's meeting room just a few days ago, and then found out from the ministry that we had been punted, I guess I'll say, to a parliamentary secretary. No less important of a meeting, and we're reviewing some of the materials that were drafted through that engagement that we had in North Cowichan. So we'll firm that up over the next couple of days, make sure it's in everyone's hands before the weekend, and then we can always do a good huddle before the meeting. And that's probably, it seems to me, worked well last year, was that we all get together before we go into those meetings, kind of figure out our script, if you will. My suggestion this year is we forego introductions, because when the 6 of us walk in a room, by the time we've introduced, 8 of our 15 minutes is gone, so we can just get down to business, and then when they're taking questions, we can hand out, or taking a photo, we can hand out cards and get more into the niceties, if you will.
So, Mr. Chair, if I may, just to conclude, so we do have a couple of briefing notes that are being finalized at the moment. I'm going to bring printed copies for every official on this board that will be in the meeting. I will set up those prep meetings with you. I'll reach out and put them in your calendar so we can meet for a coffee or breakfast or something at the conference. For those that aren't attending the meetings, I will email you those so you know what the briefing material that we will be taking in. Even though you may not be attending the meeting, I'll email them out so you have the information, and we'll see you there.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. And I will work with Kate as well on, Director Segal, on just some scheduling issues that we may run into with some of my municipal meetings as well. Thank you. With that, we'll move along. Ms. Boyd.
Thank you. We have no public hearing information. Moving to bylaws. B1, CVRD bylaw offense notice enforcement bylaw 4544 be granted first and second and third reading.
Moved by Director Morrison, seconded by Director Wilson. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Motion carries.
Thank you. And B for adoption, 4544.
Moved by Director Abbott, seconded by Director Segal. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Motion carries.
Thank you, Chair. CVRD bylaw number 4584 Mill Springs Sewer System Service Amendment, requisition increase $171,250, bylaw 2024 be adopted.
Moved by Director Segal, seconded by Director Abbott. I was going to take your look as a seconding, so thank you for raising your hand. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Motion carries.
Thank you. B3, that CVRD bylaw 4585 Cobble Hill Village Sewer System Service Amendment, requisition limit increase $200,000, bylaw 2024 be adopted.
Moved by Director Wilson, seconded by Director Segal. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Motion carries.
Moving along, B4, that CVRD bylaw 4586 Lambourne Estate Sewer System Service Amendment, requisition limit increase $48,750, bylaw 2024 be adopted.
Moved by Director Abbott, seconded by Director Istash. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? And opposed? None opposed. Motion carries.
B5, that CVRD bylaw 4594 Cobble Hill Village Sewer System Service Amendment, boundary extension bylaw 2024 be adopted.
Moved by Director Wilson, seconded by Director Abbott. Director Wilson.
Yeah, there was some discussion with Director Segal last time as to who had the best sewer system, and I checked and we have. Thank you.
That was germane. Thank you, Director Wilson. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? The votes in favor were not an endorsement of Director Wilson's discussion points, but I will let them stand. Ms. Boyd.
Thank you. B6, that CVRD bylaw 4596 Carlton Water System Service Amendment, requisition limit increase, bylaw 2025 be granted first, second, and third reading.
Moved by Director Segal, seconded by Director Morrison. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Motion carries.
B7, that CVRD bylaw 4597 Shellwood Water System Service Amendment, requisition limit increase, bylaw 2024 be granted first, second, and third reading.
Moved by Director Martman. Did I see your hand there? Director Martman, seconded by Director Caliu. I had her. Director Callio. All those in favor? Any opposed? So I apologize to the director. I made a joke about it earlier, and I was like, oh no, it's going to get into my head. And here we are. Callio. I'm going to use that at UBCM as a rallying cry. Callio. Ms. Boyd, save us from ourselves.
Thank you. B8, that CVRD bylaw 4598, Woolly Range Water System Service Amendments, requisition limit increase, bylaw 2024, be granted first, second, and third reading.
Moved by Director Martman, seconded by Director Justice. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries.
B9, that CVRD bylaw 4599, Malahat Water System Service Amendment, requisition limit increase, bylaw 2024, be granted first, second, and third reading.
Moved by Director Segal, seconded by Director Callio. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
That's B10, that CVRD bylaw 4600, Malahat Sewer System Service Amendment, requisition limit increase, bylaw 2024, be granted first, second, and third reading.
Moved by Director Segal, seconded by Director Wilson. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries.
Moving to 14, the bylaws of electoral area directors only, please. That's BEA1, CVRD bylaw 4569, South Cowichan zoning amendment bylaw 855, Shawnigan Mill Bay Road, 2024, be adopted.
Moved by Director Segal, seconded by Director Nicholson. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries.
BEA2, that's CVRD bylaw 4590, electoral area B, Shawnigan Lake zoning amendment bylaw Wildflower, 2024, be granted third reading.
Moved by Director Segal, seconded by Director Morrison. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries.
And same bylaw 4590 be adopted.
Moved by Director Abbott, seconded by Director Segal. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries.
Moving to resolutions, due to the temporary absence of Deborah Toporowski, we have an availability on the Accessibility Advisory Committee. And
Well, as Director Callio is replacing her, doesn't he automatically take over? That's what I thought. So, in all seriousness, the Accessibility Advisory Committee is definitely important work, so we shouldn't joke about it, but with Director Toporowski away, we do need another director to take her place. Go ahead.
thank you, Chair. We do have a tentative meeting coming up September 23rd at 10 a.m. I'm just confirming quorum and serving the members now on that, if someone's schedule looks open.
I feel like I should play the Jeopardy music. It's like Final Jeopardy. Well, I would look for a volunteer first. Director Abbott?
Could we get a little background on what is involved with
Do we have a member of staff that can speak to it? Ms. Boyd?
Thank you, Chair. So the Accessibility Advisory Committee was established with, I believe it's 12 members, and they have not held their first meeting yet. So the inaugural meeting will be held on the 23rd, and it will be more of a operational information meeting to train the members, because majority of it is public.
Follow-up, Director Abbott, or I saw Director Nicholson as well as Director Deck.
if there's a race for this position, I'd throw my hat in the ring.
Okay. Director Deck, did you have a question or wish to speak to it? Let's make it a race, Director Deck.
I can't stand the, no hands, no, no voices. I'm just wondering what time that is, because I do have a meeting that day.
Thank you, through the chair. It would be tentatively at 10 a.m. And again, I'm serving the current members on the board or the committee to see make sure we have quorum first.
So Director Abbott has volunteered. If another director wishes to be nominated to the position, I would accept that now. Sorry, Director McGonigal.
I would like to move Director Abbott as the other representative on the Accessibility Advisory Committee.
And that's been seconded by Director Martman.
Thank you.
Do we have any other nominations for the position? People can self-nominate. Seeing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed? Congratulations, Director Abbott. And a question.
To Allison, I'm already volunteered till 10 o'clock on Speed Watch. She hasn't taken me up on that, so if you could make it 10:15.
Director Abbott, you may have to speed away from Speedwatch at about 10 to 10 to make your other commitment that you just agreed to, so. And when you're done, can you please help out our citizens on patrol? They're having trouble staffing their Speedwatch, so up in Ladysmith. We're looking for volunteers. Thank you. I believe, Ms. Boyd, that takes us to question period.
Looking to the gallery, we have one.
Mr. McGonigal.
Thank you. Tim McGonigal. I reside in Lake Cowichan, British Columbia, the westernmost terminus of the Great Canadian Trail. With your indulgence, fellow directors, my surgery date has been expedited to next Tuesday. So unfortunately, I will be missing Chair Stone's final meeting. And I thought it would be remiss if I didn't rise and at least thank Chair Stone for the many years of service that he has contributed not only to this organization, but several others throughout the community. Through the short time that I have known Chair Stone, we have become friends, acquaintances, and colleagues. You will be sorely missed in the many organizations that you have led with your fellow elected officials throughout the region and the island. I thank you personally, as a friend, for all the contributions that you have given to Ladysmith, Island Coastal Economic Trust, and every other organization that you have been involved with. So I will approach you and shake your hand and wish you the best in your future endeavors, sir.
Thanks, Tim. Security, we have a member of the public that entered the horseshoe. Okay. I appreciate it, Tim. Thank you very much, and I will watch your committee of the whole meeting to see what you said about me there last night when I wasn't paying attention. I'm going to save any sort of farewell speeches for 2 weeks from now when I actually have my last meeting, but thank you very much, Tim. I really appreciate it, and I'm glad your surgery got moved up. I know it's been really tough. That long wait is almost over, and then I feel for your family and your wife in particular when you get out for the first few weeks. But having spoken with other friends that have gone through it, you'll be thankful sooner than later, especially with how you've been struggling with it for the last number of months. Thanks, Tim. Ms. Boyd.
Thank you, Chair. Motion to close the meeting under the divisions, Community Charter Part 4, Division 3, Section 90.
Moved by Director McClinton, seconded by Director Justice. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed? We'll be back for closed at 3.